Unfortunately, I've been with General Sullivan this morning, which means that I'm on my 9th cup of coffee. That man can drink coffee. And so I can't stand still. So I'm going to have to be moving the whole time. I asked him to wire me in. Yeah, so yes, my position existed when you were here in charge of research at the Academy. It just wasn't well exercised. In the last few years, it has just grown exponentially at the Academy. And if you want to know any more about it, or any more actually about anything I don't talk about today, I highly recommend you read this West Point magazine that's been coming out from AOG. Absolutely a change in philosophy, but great communication device by my classmate Kim McDermott, so thanks Kim, wherever you are. And it has just changed how we communicate what we do. Really appreciate that. And it allows me to kind of veer totally off topic and do other things during my talk. So next slide. I'm going to talk about you. I know when I teach cadets, the first thing that you want to do is make it relevant to them, so it's always fine for me just to make it relevant to you. And so I always cover everybody's favorite topic, which is themselves. And then I was asked specifically within the academic program to talk about AIADs, or internships, which have grown exponentially in the Academy as well. Next slide. So to talk about you, I dug into the data that you gave up to come to this conference. So on the left is everybody that was listed. If I go to the website right now, this is everybody that's listed. It keeps going on ad nauseum of folks that registered to come to this workshop and conference. So thank you for giving up your data. And then I had to think about, well, how do I connect you? How do I see ways that you all are connected? And I thought, well, it's your class, right? And because if you think about it, you got the West Point Leadership Development System brief this morning. You were this person here. Giving development at one time, and of course you were this person here receiving development at one time. And you know, given this crew right here, who wouldn't want to develop them? Well, rather than do everybody, let me sort of scope what this means. This means that if you look around you, there's 3 classes up and there's 3 classes down that you developed or were developed by you. So next slide, please. I picked on Jim Johnson because it's easy. And if we look at him specifically in my world and the way I see the world, there he is. Here's his peers who he was hanging out with on our day. I don't know if back then, I think they came in by horse and carriage or the train. And they arrived, and yeah, we've been trading jokes for a while on this. They arrived and we're going to graduate in '73. And the greeting committee was over here. And they were there to help. As much as they can. And so I look at that crew over here that was here to help, and they seem like helpful people, just the names, and I know many of you here look forward to the arrival of the class 73, particularly for the class 72, because it had a significant impact on your status. So you can always thank the class of 73. Well, if you look forward from this, you know, what Jim did is he decided to pass on the goodness. And so he did it over here for the class of 74, 75, and 76. So I've had this conversation before, and I know that sometimes Frank Janoski will invite folks over to his home, Jim will go over, or I know Bob McClure will invite folks like, you know, Jim Johnson or even General Huntoon over to his office. And I always recommend, you know, get the fresh coffee if he offers something. Because these two might not actually be giving what you think. They have a lot of pent-up anger still. But if we look at this, this is the chain. So this is, when we talk about the long gray line, this is kind of how I see it and how I see you. And myself, for that matter, as a member of the long gray line. So we're going to try something a little different, a little interactive. John Willis is taking us to a live view of your data. So this is you live. Don't let anybody move right now because we've got you targeted. And if we look at this, what I see is up here we've got the class of 45. Is Ira here? Not here. Okay. Well, he registered, doggone it. And I guess that doesn't always mean legitimate data. So I can only go off your information is only as good as your data source, right? So what I see is that from 45 all the way back to 14, here's the chain of folks that registered, or chain of classes that registered for this workshop. And I say chain because, well, number one, I apologize. It's not a long gray line, it's a red thing. And neither is it really a line. You can see it's a chain. Like, again, under this premise of 3 classes up, 3 classes back. But if I zoom in, there's Jim Johnson, he's hanging out at class 73. And if I look to left and right, that's his sort of impact up and down. But you can see he's had the opportunity, though, through being here and being who he is, to impact all the forward classes since then. So there's essence of Jim, or 73, that have passed forward all the way through to the class of 14, the class of 12, and today's classes that are here at the Academy. So that's sort of classes. Let's talk about people, though, because this isn't just about class, it's about people. And there you are. And so I was looking, there's Ira, we were looking for him, Agnew, DeGraff, Lasher, Johnson, and I can, this is making it hard to look at. There we go. Cruikshank, where is he? Yeah, I meet with him constantly, him and Norm Cooney. Bob McClure, there he is, still a little pissed off about getting hazed. Ellen Houlihan, who will come back to and has done yeoman's work here now. Vince, who's just been sucking up all the hard work. John Harkey, I just spent this morning with him. Interesting, though, is if you'd zoom back a little bit, John, that you can see that the attendance, actually, this actually produces kind of a cool pattern. We can see that attendance goes pretty far back, and it's pretty rich in the classes that are what would we say, 98? And then it sort of drops off. So attendance doesn't make sense. Maybe they're out in the force and operating, with a unit and not so interested in coming in on this week. And we could see some class a little more rich, a little more well attended. We can also see that it's weird. You can see this sort of thing where the classes get tighter together here, and that's really a misnomer because it's the classes with a little spread apart because of the people that are actually probably tighter in the Academy. I know that when I sit through AOG workshops and conferences, they talk about this, the tightness of a class, and they're like, so maybe this is a little representation of that. Okay, so this was a little aside. We're going to come back to this. But I wanted to get this idea across that you are a network, you are a chain, and we do go pretty far back with this chain. And there's a lot of reasons that you are connected well beyond your class. Okay, John, if you can take me to my boring slides. There we go. So that's you, that's your network. What I was brought here today was talk about the academic program, but I can't do it all in a half an hour. So I'm going to focus on academic individual advanced development, or internships, as many colleges would call them. Next slide. How do we get to AEDs? Well, General Dempsey's been here often, and General Dempsey's been publishing like mad. And if you read his lit, he keeps talking about, I need officers that learn. And this is a little different. If you talk to General Sullivan, he used to talk about the learning organization. This idea, and there's a lot of lit out there that's arguing it right now, what does Dempsey mean by this? And he seems to focus in on the individual learner. We need individuals that learn and continue to learn. We need individuals that adapt and leaders that continue to adapt. They've got a creativity. He talks about focus, not interested in an officer that is good at one thing, but while they're doing one thing, they're focused on it. They've got the tools, they've got everything they need to do the job they're doing at that moment and be very good at it. And because the evolution that we're seeing, he has told us we've got to continue to study our profession. Don Snyder's last book is not the epitomal tone. We're still moving on. Our profession is evolving. Next slide. The dean took this, as soon as he took this job, and we spent the first summer he was here, and he put out this vision. It is nested within the Academy's mission. It is nested with what the superintendent is seeking. But you can see the key words that are driven off of General Dempsey's push, that we're looking for this critical thinking. We're looking for creative problem-solving skills, intellectual growth, strategic leadership, and this lifetime of service. The word adaptive, as you see, just keeps coming up. And it's interesting, if you go back through, I looked, and you go through the last 3 chiefs of staff of the Army, they all talk about, I want an adaptive leader. I wanted an adaptive leader. Defining that has been difficult. Next slide. So within the education domain, we've got a number of tools that we can use. This isn't all of them, but I want to give you an idea of sort of what it's like. Many of you were on the receiving end of the education program, may not always thought of what was going on behind the scenes to poke you and make your life hell. And one of them that has always been hell, and I love it, and we're not going to change it, is our pedagogy. And that's a really neat word at West Point for the Thayer method. And it remains. It is a tool we use because having somebody prepared for class before they show up is amazing. I got to teach at The Ohio State University when I was there at grad school, and I got so much pushback when I showed up and said, okay, we're having a quiz at the start of the class. They actually came back and the students complained and I had to change the class because the students complained that you can't test me on things you didn't teach yet. And they won. However, at West Point, it turns out I just say, shut up. And you get a high 0. Right? So it's a very different philosophy. No kidding, this is definitely a defining characteristic of West Point. It doesn't exist anywhere else. Very few universities in the United States, you're hearing complaints about education in the United States, don't have this advantage, the ability to tell a cadet and enforce that they will be ready for class. And it's carried me pretty far throughout my life. Academic disciplines, 45 majors, still got this going on. Some big change, still something that's really evolving. What are the right number of majors? We're dealing with this all the time. But as a tool, it's wonderful because it allows a cadet to go deep into a discipline and really feel a sense of expertise, feel what it's like to actually be a master of something as close as they can be. Now, that also provides a really neat opportunity for success. It's called a challenge. How do you then integrate across the curriculum? Because West Point is still a program. West Point is not a university, right? We are a program. We have an integrated opportunity to develop leaders, and everything we do needs to get to that effect. And actually, our vice dean just spent this last year. Every department had to go through every class, every one of the courses they teach, right down to the class level, and certify that what they were teaching led to the next class, and blended with all the other classes. Very painful when you have 45 majors, but it works. Only at West Point. Semester abroad, something new. You've heard about it before. We're up to about 150 a year, cadets going to semesters abroad. It's not just the experience they get, but what they bring back to the academy that is doing wonderful things for us. And of course, it's communicating our brand. I mean, it's amazing how many folks now know more about West Point across the world because our cadets are out there talking about it and demonstrating. I was recently in a country called Qatar. And they were begging for cadets. They said, because we heard that you guys changed the culture in the classroom when you come for a semester abroad. What a powerful statement. Our cadets changed the culture of a university. Amazing. Our dean is pushing that we can't get everybody for a semester abroad. We want everybody to have an international experience. So we're pushing that. Projects. Best thing I can say is AOG has been begging you to come for Projects Day. It's on again this next year. Come for Projects Day. You'll be blown away. It is not what you think. It is not what you expect. You all have been to it. You've seen it, sir, so you know. Good to see you again, sir. And amazing, amazing. The Projects Day, what our cadets are doing in Projects Day is just phenomenal. Please come. So today's topic is AADS. Before I move on, this is not all the tools we have. Our cadets, our faculty are mentors. Our faculty are coaches. Our faculty are ORs. They're doing all those things. But this is sort of an idea of the kind of tools we bring to bear when we're trying to figure out how to create an adaptive, creative leader. AADS help us get there. Next slide. Rather than define an AAD, let me give you a couple examples. One I love that just happened, we had 5 cadets go spend the summer in a senator's office, supporting him on some policy questions. Lo and behold, there's a general who's trying out for the CIA. And so they turn into his cheering section and they sit right behind him. What an opportunity, right? And probably pretty good for General Petraeus to have a cheering section like this right behind him. We had cadets that looks like fun climbing Pikes Peak until you realize the equipment they were wearing. They actually went to Pikes Peak and joined the Army's high altitude lab where they studied, how sick you can get depending on how fast you move up. So they had to move up real fast to see who got the most sick. Could not show you the inside of MIT lab because they wouldn't show us the inside. So our cadets spent this part of this summer working in the nanotechnology lab of MIT, developing a DNA-controlled lithium battery. Amazing. Cadet at NC State, working on the hyperthermal pile, working on enzyme research at NC State through his summer. Next slide. Cadets that went to Kenya, who worked for the U.S. Army Infectious and Disease Laboratory. They deployed sandfly traps and studied how disease propagates throughout Kenya and the region. Cadets that spent the summer on the USNS Comfort, moving through the Caribbean nations and moving through Central America, providing humanitarian assistance and serving as part of the crew. Cadets that went to Taiwan for the summer and taught English. Cadets that went to Russia and operating with their Russian counterparts were excavating World War II battlefields. Next slide. So those are examples. This is all the places they went. Actually, it isn't. This is all the places they were on the 5th of July. That was 343 on that day. We did a total of 1,031 this summer. It's turned into kind of a management challenge. Pretty exciting. All these experiences happening. And don't just look at where they are, but remember that all this comes back to West Point and starts class on Monday. What an impact on my classroom. So that tells you what they are. But what I think is more important is how they happen. Because how they happen by, every time somebody asks me, says, the AAs, this is amazing. You did 1,000 of them. What's your system? Well, I'm going to show you the system. Next slide. But we're going to use you. Because actually it turns out the system is the network. And you all that have been West Pointers for a while know about our network. And it is alive and well, and it is what gets the job done. Next slide. Where's Ellen? Oh, there she is, down in front. So, Ellen Houlihan, you all know her. She's been talking in front of you throughout this workshop. Well, she has influenced probably about 35 cadets through AIADs in the last 4 years, maybe a little bit more than that. Next slide. And how does she do it? It's really kind of an intricate network, right? She's working for Raytheon. She makes that connection that Raytheon is interested in insider threats. Insider threats are folks that can go into your computer system, your cyber threat, in your work, and actually do some damage. And they've been developing some neat software to detect that, detect folks like Mr. Cooney. And I know what kind of things he'll do from the inside. And you want to protect against that. So, turns out he was able to link into another West Pointer, Grant Jacoby. Here he is swearing in Sam Huddleston upon his graduation. And Grant is very careful about where he sends his cadets in the computer science major. But he actually made a great connection with Ellen, great connection with Raytheon, and he had an interest in this thing called WikiLeaks, and how the heck could that happen to us? How could we have lost all this data? And so design a set of cadets. The cadets have spent multiple summers now, paid for by Raytheon, to spend their summers at Tennessee and a couple of other facilities. And the one in Tennessee that I think is really neat is it got picked up this summer and went on the AP Wire, West Point plus Raytheon, and it went out on Financial News Network because they're pretty interested in insider threats, obviously. Amazing impact. That's one ad. Next slide. Another one comes from Archie Elam. Many of you all know Archie. He's pretty prolific, and he's always sitting in about 3 different seats during a football game, or maybe 5. If you ever go to a football game, he doesn't seem to be able to sit still, and he seems to just move between different loges, different seats, without anybody stopping him. And if you've seen his size, you understand. Archie came in, and he's been a big push on diversity in the academy. And you're going to get a talk, and we'll hear multiple times about how we're doing on diversity at the academy. But one of the things that we started to notice was that we were bringing in minority candidates, and they were doing really well. They were getting through the academy well. But when it came to excellence, the Rhodes Scholars, things like that, it wasn't happening. We started looking and realized that we had these systems in place that were designed to be a safety net. And we had never talked about systems in place that pushed for excellence. So one of our faculty members, next slide, one of our faculty members, Erica Rivera, took it upon herself that she said, I want to fix this. So she talked to a guy named Mike Endres. Many of you all know him from admissions. And he said, I can give you a little bit of funding, but I really can't get you too far. So she said, well, maybe I can leverage cadets to get us to excellence, actually use the cadets themselves to get to excellence. And Mike told her to talk to this guy, Archie. They met at a football game, ended up having a great communication. Archie stepped in and said, look, we're going to leverage another thing. We're going to leverage myself, and we're going to leverage a thing called NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. And what we're going to do is we're going to push these cadets to go for excellence. To don't just stop at a top average at about a 3.5. We're going to go for the 4.0. And what's happened now is we've got Mia Rice, Cadet Mia Rice, Cadet John Craig. Both have now spent this summer paid for in part by NSBE, part paid for by Archie Elam. And they spent the summer doing STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, training, teaching of others outside the academy. I actually traveled to a number of states this summer providing this education. And it turns out that it is a national priority that the president has spoken about a number of times. Science, technology, engineering, math, we are hurting in it in America. But this little chain that came out of your network is going after it. Absolutely amazing. Next slide. This one's near and dear to my heart. There's Dan Evans. Where's Dan? Sir. Yeah. I lost you. I know he's in here. Colonel Evans, this one's kind of special to me. Colonel Evans graduated with my father, who was killed in Vietnam. And they graduated together in class with the class of 64. And we're going to talk about Cadet Madeline and Cadet Nick here. So next slide. Well, as I said, so Dan, my father's classmate. Well, when I'm a kid, my father gets killed in Vietnam. Well, what happens with West Point? West Point Network. West Point Network steps up, and it takes care of its own, sir. And so when I'm a kid and I'm going through life, the class 64 is stopping by to see me throughout my life and making sure that my family's taken care of. At a time when back then, if you were a soldier and you were killed, your family got $256 a month, I think, to take care of everything. So folks would stop by my house, take care of my mom, make sure everything was okay. And as a result, Dan, Colonel Evans, was one of those folks. Well, it turns out his son is my classmate, class of 87. So we created a partnership. And while we're here, we're having a little conversation. We said, you know, what about economic networks and how we can improve and stabilize Africa? We got kind of excited by this idea. And that's over a beer. And last night I watched a lot of things solved by beer. So this group tends to do that. We hooked in with another classmate named Sean Wurzbach. Sean Wurzbach works at Standard & Poor's. Standard & Poor's stepped forward and said, we'll give you all the data we got about how we index Africa. How do we index African markets? We'll give you all of it. Army Research Office steps in, an Army or government organization, and actually is manned pretty heavily with West Pointers, by the way, and said, we'll pay for it. We want in. This is really cool. So Dan now has taken probably about, I think he's on his 9th trip. These cadets went to Ghana, and he took them there. And they went to Ghana where they went into the stock market. Imagine you walk into the stock market or you walk into a broker's office and you say, tell me all your data, tell me all your risks, tell me how you're screwed. Nobody's going to tell you this, right? They tell these cadets anything. Our database is amazing. And a side story that I really appreciate about this, 2 of them. One is the reason the dean's not here right now is this is where he is. He's got to spend 2 weeks of his general officer finishing school or charm school in Africa. Amazing. I think the Army gets it. This is the place. This is an issue for us. And here we are in our 4th year of this study. A study on the back of cadets. Neat story that I love telling. This cadet's over at my house doing laundry all the time. I wish he would graduate. But Madeline here is a neat story. If you all know, and this I really should put a line back to Dan Evans. If you know Dan Evans, he's got a funny accent because he's from the Bronx. Now, he'll say he's from Yonkers because that's a move up. Right? But it turns out Madeline here is from the Bronx too. And it's been a big issue for us. We can't get cadets to apply from the Bronx. Could be the Senate district, could be anything. I really don't know why. But and that's been an issue. Well, he's been on this. He's been pushing it hard. She applied. She did well. But her family had a major issue during this downturn in the economy and moved back to the Dominican Republic, where the family started to fall apart. And so she put in for a special pass and said, I want to take a year off and go take care of my family. So Dan, Jr., over here, my classmate, actually stepped in, took care of her, and convinced her to shrink the amount of time she would leave the academy to go get her family squared away. She left. She came back, which we didn't think was going to happen. But I think Dan, Jr. made that happen. And now she is back doing really well and just got picked for a semester abroad. So doing really well. So next slide. So when I look to today, absolutely amazing. General Gordon Sullivan's here. What's he here for? Trying to create some AIADs. How does he know this? How does he know to come to West Point to create cadet experiences and pursue them and try to get them to energize another institution? Amazon. Amazon.com is on the phone with me for an hour on Monday talking about how they want cadets next year, this time, to spend the whole summer with them. Why? Next slide. I don't know. But somewhere out there in this room or connected to you through your network is somebody that energized or informed these folks that you've got to make this connection back to West Point. You've got this asset, Amazon, your research area, et cetera. Charles Sullivan, just his numerous areas that he's interested in as an intellectual. And he's coming and tapping into us because somewhere out there in this chain, somewhere out here in this network, there's folks that made that link for us. I really appreciate that. I don't know who you are, but keep your hand down. What I love is that this kid right now who's going to go to Afghanistan or to the next place they're going to go is going to be creative. They're going to be adaptive. They're going to be exactly what General Dempsey is looking for because they're doing these out-of-the-box experiences and going deep into something with a passion. And that really produces the best graduate. So with that, next slide. Thank you.